Geometry. Mathematicians can identify quadrilaterals. Let's recap. Last week you learned how to identify polygons. Today you will learn how to identify types of quadrilaterals, which is one type of polygon. What is a polygon? A polygon is a closed shape that's made up of line segments that only meet at their endpoints. Each line segment in a polygon is a side. Remember, they have to have straight line segments or straight sides, and it has to be closed. We took a look at these last week. We know the first one is not a polygon because it is not a closed shape. We know the second one's not a polygon because it doesn't have straight line segments. It is curved. We know the third shape is a polygon because it's closed and has straight line segments. And we know the last one is not a polygon because it's an open shape. Just a quick review of what is a polygon. Super important to know what a polygon is. Let's get to what our topic is, or our teaching point is for today. We're going to look at some quadrilaterals. Quadrilaterals have to have 4 sides, 4 angles. It has to have 4 sides and 4 angles to be a quadrilateral. Now, quadrilaterals are like a family. We're going to learn more about each one and what makes it special. So here are some types of quadrilaterals. We have a square. A square is the most special type of quadrilaterals because it has the most things that make it unique or special. It has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So we have this side is parallel to this side, and we have this side is parallel to this side. You have 4 sides that are equal length and 4 right angles. It has to have all 3 of these dots in order to be considered a square. A rectangle has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So again, same thing like in a square is it has 2 pairs that are opposite sides are parallel. Now, the thing that's different here is you're going to have 2 pairs of sides that are equal length. Notice how the square, all 4 are equal. On the rectangle, you have this one is equal to that one, and you have this one is equal to that one. There are also 4 right angles. That's what makes it different. So they have 4 right angles. They both have opposite sides are parallel, but a rectangle has 2 pairs of sides that are equal, not 4 equal sides. Then we have a parallelogram. This just has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. That's it. That's all that makes a parallelogram a parallelogram. Then we have a trapezoid. For a trapezoid, it only has to be 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. So in a parallelogram, both opposite sides have to be parallel, like in a square and a rectangle. But in a trapezoid, you only need 1 pair. If you notice, this side and this side will eventually meet or intersect. And the lengths could be the same side. It doesn't really matter on the trapezoid. So the only thing that's important is that 1 pair of opposite sides are parallel. 1 pair, 2 pairs, 2 pairs, 2 pairs. Rhombus. This one also has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. But if you notice, a rhombus doesn't have to have right angles. A rectangle and a square have to have right angles, but a rhombus, a parallelogram, and a trapezoid do not have to have right angles. But what's special about the rhombus that makes it a little different than a parallelogram is that all 4 sides are equal, just like in a square. The easiest way for you to think of quadrilaterals is to look at them in a family tree. Let's look. Here's our family tree of quadrilaterals. Just like in our family tree, our last name or our starting point is quadrilaterals. The quadrilaterals had 3 babies. That's how I like to think of it. They had a parallelogram, a trapezoid, and just a regular quadrilateral. So this regular quadrilateral just has 4 sides, 4 angles. A trapezoid has 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. The parallelogram has 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. 1 pair, 2 pairs, no pairs. So the trapezoid's family stops here, but the parallelogram was able to have more babies, so to speak, where you're going to keep going down this family tree. So the parallelogram had a rectangle and a rhombus. Now we know the rectangle and rhombus from the parallelogram got the inherited trait of having two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So this has two pairs that are opposite sides that are parallel. The rectangle has two pairs that are opposite sides that are parallel, and so does the rhombus. What makes the rectangle different from the rhombus is that it has four right angles. And then what makes the rhombus different is that it has equal sides, four equal sides. Now, like we talked about in the beginning, the square is the most special of all. It's because it got everything from this side of the family tree. It got the two pairs of parallel sides, just like the rectangle, rhombus, and parallelogram. It got the four right angles, just like the rectangle. It got the equal sides, just like the rhombus. So the way that this works is that when we identify shapes, if a shape is a square is also a rectangle, a square is also a rhombus, a square is also a parallelogram. That's why we can go up and say it's all of these things. A rectangle, again, we can go up and say that it's a parallelogram and a quadrilateral because it's underneath this family title. But a rectangle is not a rhombus because you can't go across and you can't go down. It's not a square. Same thing with the rhombus, is that we can only go up, so it can only be a parallelogram or a quadrilateral. It is not a rectangle and it's not a square because you can only go up through these black lines. Now, parallelogram. Parallelogram's only going to be a quadrilateral. Trapezoid, only going to be a quadrilateral. You can only go up, you can't go down. Let's see how that works when we're identifying shapes. So here, we have a shape. Remember, we can only go up the tree, not down the tree. So let's start at the bottom. Let's see if it's a quadrilateral. Well, a quadrilateral has four sides. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know already that this shape has to be a quadrilateral. Let's highlight that. In your case, you'd probably circle it. Sorry, I hit the wrong thing. Okay, let's make it green so you can see it better. Okay, so we know that this shape has to be a quadrilateral because it's four sides. Now, a trapezoid, we know, has to have one pair of parallel sides. That's it, just one. Well, I only see one, so let's highlight that. Okay, we know it's a trapezoid, we know it's a quadrilateral. Now, if it's a trapezoid and a quadrilateral, it really can't be any of these because it doesn't go down this branch, but let's double check. Parallelogram, two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. Well, we know we said these two were parallel, but we know these two can't be because eventually they're going to intersect. Not parallelogram, so if it's not a parallelogram, it can't be a rhombus, it can't be a rectangle, and it can't be a square. It's just a quadrilateral and a trapezoid. Let's look at this shape. Is it a quadrilateral? Yes, we know it's a quadrilateral. Now we also have to look to see if it's a trapezoid. Yes, we know it has at least one pair of parallel sides. So we can highlight trapezoid as well. Now a parallelogram. Well, to be a parallelogram, you have to have opposite sides, two pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. So you have one pair, two pairs. So it has to be a parallelogram too. What about a rhombus? Well, are all your sides equal? Yes, so then it has to be a rhombus as well. And what about a rectangle? Nope, I don't see any right sides, and I don't see any right sides for a square either. So we know that this is what a rhombus looks like, but a rhombus can also be called a parallelogram, a trapezoid, or a quadrilateral. Remember, starting at rhombus and you can work your way up. It can be a rhombus, a parallelogram, a trapezoid, or a quadrilateral. Remember, you can only go up, not sideways or down. Let's look at these two. Now, you should know this shape right off the bat. We should know already that this shape is called a square. It's one of the first shapes you learned in kindergarten. So we know that if we work from our family tree and we know this is a square, we can work our way up. We know a square has to be a rectangle, it has to be a rhombus, it has to be a parallelogram, a trapezoid, and a quadrilateral. So a square has to be all of these. Again, that's what makes the square so special and so important, is that it's all of these. Yes, most specifically it's called a square, but a square is also considered all of these. Let's look at this shape right here. Well, we know it has 4 sides, so 4 sides has to be a quadrilateral. When I'm looking at this quadrilateral, I've never seen anything before like this. It looks similar to a trapezoid, but not the same. And I noticed that none of the sides are parallel. Well, if we know none of the sides are parallel, it can only be a quadrilateral. It can't be a trapezoid, it can't be a parallelogram, cannot be a rhombus, cannot be a rectangle, and cannot be a square. Let's look at this shape right here. This shape, you should know right off the bat, again, is a rectangle. If we know that it's a rectangle, again, we can't go sideways, we can only go up. So if it's a rectangle, we know it has to be a parallelogram, has to be a trapezoid, and has to be a quadrilateral. We know that this shape right here is not a rhombus because all sides aren't equal. And that's the same reason we know it's not a square, because all sides are not equal. Let's look at this shape. This one you might not be as familiar with, but if I look over here, it looks very similar to a parallelogram. So I'm going to think, if my shape's a parallelogram, it could be a trapezoid or a quadrilateral. So let's highlight those first, and let's see if it falls into anything else. If this is a parallelogram, rhombus means all sides are equal. Well, I know they're not equal. A rectangle means there's right angles. No right angles here. And a square means all equal sides and right angles. So it can't be a square either. Let's quickly review some of the vocabulary that we've been going over with geometry on other types of polygons. Types of polygons: triangle, 3 sides, 3 angles; quadrilateral that we worked on today, 4 sides, 4 angles; pentagon, 5 sides, 5 angles; hexagon, x, 6, hex, 6; hexagon, 6 sides, 6 angles; octagon, 8 sides, 8 angles; decagon, 10 sides, 10 angles. All right, mathematicians, I know we have been doing a lot of vocabulary work these last couple of days. Today, we focused on a square, rectangle, rhombus, parallelogram, trapezoid, and a quadrilateral. Your job is going to be to go back and make sure you complete the independent writing work. Make sure you email it to myself and Ms. Kapusky. Let's quickly review the vocabulary today. Square, most special, 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, 4 equal sides, 4 right angles. Rectangle, 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel, 2 pairs of sides that are equal length, 4 right angles. Parallelogram, just 2 pairs of opposite sides that are parallel. Trapezoid, at least 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel. Rhombus, 2 pairs of sides that are parallel, 4 sides of equal length. Remember, the only ones with equal length are a rhombus and a square. The only ones with right angles are a square and a rectangle. Everything in here has at least 1 pair of opposite sides that are parallel, but what makes a rhombus, parallelogram, rectangle, and square different, how they're on that different branch, is because 2 pairs of opposite sides are parallel. Again, happy learning today. Awesome job. Go get your written work done now. Bye, 3rd graders.